Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is John, and today we are going to bring to life, well, not really alive, but make a big one, a Pikachu. We're going to do a life-size Pokemon, a life-size Pikachu. Nintendo, don't sue me. Right now, it came off the bed, and it is horrifying. So we have a horror version of Bluekachu here, but we're going to turn this into a adorable version of Pikachu, instead of this disembodied mess of parts. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Well, let's jump into the slicer. Right, here we are in Orca Slicer. These files are from Yosh Studios Patreon. I believe you can also buy them off their Etsy shop, Yosh Studios. I didn't do a whole lot here. I had to orient some things like the hands to kind of sit here when they're printing, just to help with the orientation and help it print a little bit faster. I didn't do anything crazy in terms of settings. Quality is all normal, just a 0.2 layer height. I did go ahead and throw in a third wall there. It'll just make things a little more durable. Only 3% infill, and I went with an adaptive cubic infill here to save a lot of space. The extra wall is going to add a lot of strength to the model, so I don't need like this Pikachu body to be completely filled in with infill and just waste a lot of filament. Adaptive cubic will basically put denser infill on areas where it needs it, and then less infill on areas where the algorithm doesn't think that it needs it. So it's a really great option to save a little bit of infill, especially on big things like this. This isn't really a prop, it's just kind of going to sit there on a shelf, so it works great for that. But plated all the parts, everything else is normal. I used tree auto supports. I didn't do any support painting or any support blocking on this at all. Just kind of plated everything, spread it out so that it would work, and hit print. Well, it was three plates to print, but everything came out pretty nice, had no issues, no print failures, and now we get to put it all together. The sponsor of today's video, PCBWay, has a fantastic website where you can pretty much get anything you want made, from PCB prototypes, CNC machining, 3D printing, custom boards. For all of your little projects, PCBWay has an answer for you. I especially like the 3D printing options on here, as it allows you to do a lot of stuff, even if you don't have a 3D printer. If you want to do resin or PLA, you've got choices for that. They also have a lot of fun finishing options where you can get the surface to be spray painted or high glossed or electroplated, even, to give it that really nice metallic look. Or they can sand it down or get rid of all those layer lines so that it's ready to paint as soon as you get it in the mail. Check out PCBWay, guys, for all of your machining and 3D printing needs.
All right, welcome to the garage. It's been a few weeks since I filmed that first part of the video. My son was born, and so we've been basically running ragged getting into that routine, but baby boy and my wife are both doing awesome, so we're ready to get back to work. The first thing that we really have to do is sand. There's a few ways that you can smooth this out. Normally my go-to method is resin coating. Some people prefer to do Bondo or wood filler coating. I'm just gonna do this old-fashioned, and we're just gonna sand it down. I'm probably gonna use an orbital for most of it, but it is a pretty organic structure, so there's gonna be a lot of hand sanding involved too, but it's not gonna take more than like 20-25 minutes of total first layer sanding. So don't think you're gonna be doing this for hours. It should be pretty quick to get all the pieces sanded. I'm gonna start with 120 grit here. And you can see we have all the pieces laid out. There is his little head. Those are his little, I don't know, blush marks. There's the body, and we have the two pieces of the tail, the ears, arms, eyes, tongue, little stripes on the back, and then his little bitty nose piece there. So all the pieces laid out, ready to get sanded. A little bit of work to do, but it should go pretty quick. All right, everything has been sanded and rinsed. Make sure that after every round of sanding you guys do that you wash the prints off. You definitely don't want to start priming or painting when there's a whole bunch of sanded residue and stuff on there. So those are pretty good. There are a bunch of little peg holes you can kind of see in the body for the limbs and stuff to attach to. And in the files, there's also included the little pegs that go in there. However, I've printed these flat, so I basically cut the peg in half and printed it flat, so it'll actually have some support ability to it. It's a lot stronger this way. If you print them as a column, kind of standing up like this, they're very, very weak. And since this thing's probably gonna be picked up by its hands or by its arms quite a bit, I don't want all that weight hanging on top of there. It might not be a big deal, but it's super easy just to print these, cut it in half and print them flat like this. so that you get way more strength and durability out of it. However, the tolerances aren't quite exact, so we are gonna have to go through and bore some of these holes out a little bit just to make them a little bit bigger. We just have a little power drill and a drill bit to do that with. And just go slowly in these. We're just making them a little bit bigger. It's like a millimeter off. All right, now that the holes are all drilled out and all these little pegs should fit a lot better, I'm gonna glue parts of it together before I do the first coat of primer on it. Basically, I'm gonna attach the head to the body and the arms to the body, I think, as well, because all that's basically gonna be painted yellow, right? So we'll keep all the body parts as one color there, and I also want to be able to fill in the seams. So when, that's the wrong arm, but when I go to put this together, you're gonna have those little seams kind of where the arm meets the body and where the head meets the neck. And I want to be able to fill those in with some wood filler or Bondo so that it looks like a seamless body instead of like an action figure that's kind of put together. So we're gonna basically put the body together. The tail and stuff I'm gonna leave separate. The ears I'm probably gonna leave separate. The little like accent stripes and stuff I'm gonna leave those separate because we'll paint all those separately, then put them together at the end. But the head and the arms need to go on now. And to do that, I'm using the pegs obviously, and we're just using CA glue, just a little soup basically glue and the accelerant. This stuff bonds like magic. All right, he's looking pretty good here. You can see we put glue kind of around the neck and kind of the joints there on the arms. That'll help fill it in a little bit more. We'll probably have to add some Bondo or wood filler in around those seams to really make them very seamless. But the horrifying thing that we had in the beginning is starting to resemble a Pikachu. So now we're gonna hit everything with a nice thick coat of primer. I'll probably actually do 2 coats before I sand again. I'm gonna use this stuff, the Seymour PBE.
Remember when you're doing filler primer that it goes on pretty thick, so don't be afraid to let it run a little bit and just really kind of cake it on there. You wanna make sure you get every nook and cranny. You are gonna be sanding it down, so runs, drops don't really matter here.
All right, it's the next day. I put 1 coat on last night before I went to bed, and then I put the other coat on really about an hour ago, and it is already totally dried and ready to be sanded. So a big fan of this new primer. It looks like it filled in really, really well. This is the tail piece here. You can see there is still just some areas that we're gonna need to touch up and go back over and sand down with a higher grit. We've got a little bit of stuff that's gonna need filling in with some Bondo, just where like supports were and kind of based on print orientation. The actual Pikachu body and stuff itself looks pretty good. I didn't put any primer on the bottom. Not a big issue down here. This is gonna sit on a shelf like this, so it really isn't gonna be seen. I'm not gonna pay too much attention to getting this looking super nice down there, but for the most part, everything filled in pretty nice. There's some ringing on top for the dome that we're gonna have to fill in with a little bit of Bondo, but all in all, really happy with how this came out. We've got the seams that we need to be filled in as well to make this a little more seamless looking. But the next step is going to be hit this with a higher grit sandpaper. And from here on out, pretty much using a 220 grit sandpaper, and most of it's just gonna be hand sanding. And that's just to smooth down any of these little bumps or runs and stuff that was created by the thick coat of filler primer. And we'll just do that in routine. So we'll just sand with a 220 grit. And if I want to put another coat of primer on, we'll throw another coat of primer on. If I'm not happy yet, we'll put another sand of 220 grit, and we'll just kind of do back and forth with 220 grit filler primer, really as many times as it takes. Hopefully it'll only 1 or 2 more cycles, and then we're ready for paint. All right, so with the Bondo or the wood filler, you're just gonna put some on your finger. You can use like a makeup like pad, works well for these as well if you don't want to use your finger. And then we're just gonna literally just smear it into all those little seams. Try to fill it in. It's almost like filling in like caulking if you've ever done caulking before, or kind of like Play-Doh. You just smushing it in. Don't worry about having too much really extra on there. Try to minimize it, but if you get extra, it's just going to sand off real easily, so it's not really a big deal. We just want to do what we can to cover this seam. And some of these neck seams are pretty deep, so you might have to do like a couple layers of Bondo on it to kind of build on top so that you don't just keep smushing it into the crevice. So just keep that in mind. You might put on a thin layer first and then go back and add another layer, or maybe even a couple layers on top of that first little layer to really get the seam filled in and make it as seamless as you possibly can. All right, Pikachu is looking pretty good now. I did do a few rounds of basically the filler primer, Bondo sand, filler primer, Bondo sand. I used a 220 grit sandpaper the entire time. He no longer looks like he was decapitated at some point. Getting in through here, into these little gaps was a little tough, but I just folded the sandpaper over a couple times and was able to shiv it in there. Sanding sticks would work really well for getting into those small areas also. The arms look good. And we're basically ready to move on to wet sanding and then painting. For wet sanding, I'm going to use like a 320 or a 400 grit sandpaper. I'm just gonna do it in a sink. If you guys don't have a sink that you can wet sand in, get a 5-gallon bucket from like Home Depot or something and fill it halfway up with water. And then you can dip your print in there with the sandpaper, sand it, dip it, right? To get that nice smooth finish. So we'll do that and then we'll go over the paint we're gonna use. All right, Pikachu is wet sanded. That means he is ready for paint. He's feeling nice and smooth. Again, I just did this with a 400 grit sandpaper in water. All of his little parts have also been wet sanded and they are ready to rock. So for colors, I'm just using colors that I have left over from other projects. I didn't really want to go out and buy new colors or new paint just for this. So we're going to use a sweet mango for the yellow, which is the same yellow I used on my Wolverine helmet. We're going to use an apple red for the I think this is basically just for the cheek, the little rosy cheeks that he has. This is the same color that I used on my Pokeball. And then for the brown that he has on kind of the base of his tail and the stripes on his back, we're going to use this matte coffee bean, which I think I used on the part of the handle of my Thor's hammer that I made a long time ago that I never did a video on. So those are the three colors we're going to use, and the eyes are just a little bit black with a little bit white on them, so they'll be pretty simple. Now this is where you want to pay attention to what you're doing. With the primer and stuff, you can go on real heavy. It doesn't matter if it runs because you're going to sand it down. This you're going to want to go on with nice, even, light strokes that you kind of build up as you layer the paint on. Don't go too heavy with this because if it is going to run with any of these paints, then you're going to sand that back down and kind of go back through that process. So take your time with the painting. So it comes out nice and clean. And after all the hard work, here is our finished Pikachu, and I think it came out really good. It looks pretty freaking adorable if you ask me. A couple little rough spots on it, but for the most part, it came out really nice. I'm really glad that I went ahead and filled in this area on the neck so he doesn't look like he was decapitated or assembled at one point. Really kind of makes him look more like a whole creature. A couple things that I didn't film on here that I wanted to note. The eyes, I just spray painted these all in black and then I painted the white on with just an acrylic white paint. Cheap paint, you can get it at Walmart or on mine. For the inside of the mouth, the black part in there, that is also just brush painted with black acrylic paint. And then the pink color that I did for the tongue, I had a sweet pea pink is the color that I used for the tongue, a Rustoleum sweet pea pink. And there is a nose piece on here that didn't get filmed at all, I don't think. That is a very small piece, so if you do print this, don't lose the nose piece, but it's just spray painted black. The ears I did have to tape off. I believe you can also print these in 2 different pieces. I printed them in 1, so I just taped it, painted it black, taped it, painted it yellow. Easy enough. And then I clear coated the whole thing in a Rustoleum satin to give it a nice, even shine without being too obnoxiously glossy. But yeah, this is it, guys. I think it came out really good. This project took me way longer than I had anticipated, but it'll probably just end up in my son's bedroom at some point anyway. But really happy with the final result. Everything looks pretty good. So I hope you guys learned something. Hope you guys enjoyed. And to anybody out there that's making the full life-size, like bigger Pokemon, kudos to you, because that is a lot of work, and I can't wait to see how those projects come out. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.